Here I was thinking this series couldn't get any crazier. Australia have been caught ball tampering. Now, I'm sure you're all aware by now all the details surrounding this, and I think it goes without saying that what Australia did was absolutely unacceptable. So let's break this down, and we'll start with Cameron Bancroft. He was the one who carried out the ball tampering. Now, he received a 3 demerit point sanction from the ICC, so he avoided a suspension for the fourth test. I think he should have got suspended. I know that 3 demerit points is the standard punishment for ball tampering. However, the fact that he attempted to deceive the umpires sways it for me. If you remember, he put the tape in his trousers to conceal it, and then when the umpires came up to him to question him, he pulled out a black sunglasses bag from his pocket. To me, that willful deception of the umpires should have meant that he got the maximum penalty, 4 demerit points, and a 1 match ban. Now on to Steve Smith. Steve Smith has been banned for the fourth test after copping 4 demerit points. I think rightly so. He was stood down from the captaincy on the fourth day after the news had blown up in Australia overnight. And for Steve Smith now, I think his captaincy is untenable. This was all planned. This wasn't a spur of the moment thing. And as the leader of the team, the buck stops with him. Now let's just think about this in terms of Steve Smith's career. Here's a guy coming into this series who had the world at his feet, the best test batsman in the world, but now he hasn't scored any runs in this series. His reputation has been tarnished forever, and he's probably going to lose the captaincy. What a fall from grace it has been for Steve Smith. The biggest problem for Cricket Australia is who would replace Smith as captain. David Warner is the current vice captain. He also was stood down from his position on the fourth day, but David Warner is hardly got a squeaky clean reputation. In fact, his reputation is probably worse than Smith's, so they can't give Warner the captaincy here. So who is going to be the next Australian captain? Is it going to be Tim Paine, the man who was given the captaincy on that fourth day temporarily? That is going to be something that we have to watch. Now, the other guy here to talk about is Darren Lehman. He was the one who, if you remember, had the walkie-talkie, and he communicated to Peter Hanscom, who was in the dugout, to go onto the field and tell Cameron Bancroft that the TV cameras had picked up what was going on and tell Bancroft to hide the tape that he was using to mess up the ball. And I also find it quite ironic that the day before, Darren Lehman labelled the Newlands crowd as disgraceful, and yet he's the one who had previously told the Australian crowd to basically hurl abuse at Stuart Broad, and now he's been a part of a ball tampering plan. When Steve Smith came out in his press conference and said that Lehman knew nothing of it, I find that very hard to believe. I think his position is also untenable. Now, there's been rumours of Steve Smith and David Warner potentially facing a life ban from Cricket Australia. Now, I think that is going a little bit far. I think the appropriate punishment is for them to be stripped of their captaincy and vice captaincy, respectively. But banning them, I don't think does anyone any good. You're depriving cricket of two great players, and honestly, the sport can't afford that. So that would certainly be over the top. But here's a question I have for the ICC. Why wasn't the ball changed after the umpires saw that footage? You had conclusive video evidence that the ball had been altered in an untoward manner. They should have awarded South Africa 5 penalty runs and changed the ball. The commentators themselves said that the ball looked older than it should have been. I don't know how they stood idle to that. Yet again, the ICC have to be a little bit more proactive. This is a serious issue, and it's a matter of the integrity of the game. You have to be more ruthless in stamping out this kind of stuff. As for Steve Smith saying that this was the first time they'd done it, I find that very hard to believe. If this was something they had planned, I can't imagine they just came together at lunch on that third day and thought, you know what, this ball isn't going to reverse swing, let's tamper with it. That is still quite a spur of the moment thing, even though it's planned. You've just thought of it at lunch on the day, about an hour before you actually commit the act. To me, this must have been something that they would go to regularly. Perhaps they just weren't caught on camera before. Perhaps when they were playing at home, Channel 9 wouldn't be willing to release all the camera angles of this kind of stuff. Who knows? But to me, I find it very hard to believe that this was the first time they did it. It just doesn't seem right. It's all too well planned for this to be a one-time thing. They were throwing the ball after every delivery to Cameron Bancroft. This was a well-oiled machine. He had the tape just cupped in his palm to try and conceal it, and then he would rub on the ball. It was very, very suspicious, to say the least. Now, what ramifications does this have for Australian cricket? The tagline they have used about the way they play the game is hard but fair. Now, personally, I don't think that's ever been true. Their sledging has often crossed the line into abuse. But anyway, they cannot use that tagline anymore. Australia's cricket identity is now in question. Their reputation is in question more than it has been in the past. And this is going to have far-reaching consequences for Australian cricket. You saw the way they played on that fourth day. They crumbled with the bat, and in the field, they looked despondent. They were quiet. Clearly, this has had a huge effect on the psyche of this team. And you have to wonder how bad this is going to become for Australia. But either way, ball tampering is simply not on in the game. Now, do I believe that Australia are the only people that are doing it? Absolutely not. They're not the first to do it, and they won't be the last to do it. But it was quite disturbing just how blatant this cheating was from them. And cricket has a major integrity crisis. Fans looking on at the game must be thinking, geez, cricket, the gentleman's game? And I want to leave you with this. This has been a bad week for cricket, with the drama surrounding the Cricket World Cup format, and now this. This is supposed to be a marquee series, and yet the behaviour in this series has been abominable. It is a terrible look for cricket. Now, just think about this. Australia, part of the Big Three, have been exposed for cheating, and yet the ICC pander to them at every possible opportunity. They are given anything they want and some. Meanwhile, the associate nations and the smaller full nations who have been battling it out at the Cricket World Cup qualifier, they play the game in the right way. And yet the ICC try to keep them down at every possible opportunity. And there's no better example of that than there only being 10 teams at the Cricket World Cup next year. But anyway, if you got this far, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this whole mess, and I will see you in the next video.